Hello and welcome to a tutorial on how to use the Photoshop vector tools. So Photoshop has some vector tools, and many would say that don't use them, use Illustrator instead if you want to, for example, make a logo or make anything, vector graphics. Some would prefer Animate CC for other vector purposes. It's previously known as Flash. But actually the Photoshop vector tools have their usage. So, for example, if you want to, in Photoshop, make a quick shape, for example, if you make mock-ups of interfaces and logos, even logo mock-ups, I prefer to use Photoshop because it's so much faster. I can blend pixel graphics and vector-based graphics as I please with far faster efficiency than I would be able to in Illustrator. So let's start by resizing our image to a more workable size. So I press Control Alt I to bring up the image size dialog, and I press in a number that's a little higher so I can fit my frame in 100% view. Also, we don't need all this background jitter. Let's press Control T to resize the image after we unlock it. So simply double click to unlock it and then press Control T for transform. If you hold down Shift and Alt at the same time as you drag in a corner, you will see that you can resize it proportionally from the middle and out, and I will do that. So now the duck fits nicely in my view. It doesn't matter how big you make your vector actually, but make it a pleasant size for you to work with. The reason is that vector is scalable. So you won't lose any quality if you scale your vector 100 times the size afterwards. That's pretty cool. So let's press P for pen tool, and you can also just click down here. Please double check that you have pen tool chosen and not freeform pen tool or any of the other options. So pen tool, and up here you can choose between making pixels, that is raster graphics, and that's definitely not what we want now. You can make a path, where path is not filled, or you can make a shape. So what we want to do now is make a shape that is filled out. Here you can set the color, and let's just choose black. And here you should ensure that stroke has been disabled, or the shape will get a stroke. Not that you can't undo it afterwards, it's actually very easy to do that, but it's just nasty to work with as you go along. So start by pressing a point on the duck. We're going to outline it to make it into a silhouette. So simply press a point along the shape of the duck with the left mouse button. And then a point is inserted and a new layer is created. This is a vector layer. So I will just rename mine and call it silhouette. And I will chuck down my opacity from 100% to 50% so I can easily see what I'm doing, or else it would be solid and I would not be able to see through it. Yeah, so 50% allows me to 50% opacity allows me to see through this layer that I'm creating now, this shape, and see the photo that is underneath, that is my guide. This photo has been shot by Piece of Art on deviantart.com, but please look at my video description to see the link if you want to use this exact same image. So now it's time for some shortcuts. Hold down Control and Alt while you scroll, then you can zoom in and out. So once you've done that, release it and press down spacebar. Then press down your left mouse button and drag around. Then you can drag it around your view. So Control and Alt while you scroll to zoom in and out. Press down spacebar to move your view around. I'm going to use that a lot, so because it's nice to zoom in a bit in order to make a better looking shape. So I will simply press down my left mouse button without pressing any keys on my keyboard when I'm ready. So I press down my left mouse button, and while I hold it down, I drag with my mouse. As you can see, as I do that, these two handles begin to appear outside of my point where I initially pressed. And these handles allows me to control the curvature of the line. So once I'm happy, I just release it. Then I'm ready to insert a new point. and I'm ready to insert a new point. You should try to endeavor to make as few points as possible. Many people that learns how to use pen tool, they make way too many points, and that will create a more rough looking silhouette. So I'm also just going to ignore the feathers here. That would of course be fine for another type of style, but for example, if I wanted to go with simple iconography, I would have to simplify the shape of this duck anyway, and those feathers would be ignored. For now, I'm ignoring them simply because I don't guess you guys want to see a 1 hour tutorial where I'm making a very precise silhouette of a duck. You can also simply press without dragging. That will create a point that has no handles. These are called Bezier handles. Especially people coming from the 3D graphics world, they will know what this is. These are not NURBS, non-uniform random B-splines, but these are Bezier points. So a vector is a mathematical equation that explains how a line breaks through a point, which is also the reason why you can keep zooming in on this vector shape without it losing any quality, without it becoming pixelated. And that's why we choose to make this shape quickly in vector, because maybe we want to use it as an icon, or maybe we want to blow it up on a poster that is large, or maybe we want it to cover an entire building. I guess if you want to make a more serious vector drawing, you would choose Illustrator. But there actually was a time when photographers were taught this technique to isolate objects or people from to extract them from the background. Some people are still taught this technique. For example, if you send a photo for extraction in one of the cheaper countries to have it done in would be India. Some of the companies will deliver this vector path for you, so you can also edit it yourself. That is also an added benefit to making vector graphics. You can go back and you can edit it as you please. So now I'm almost through. I simply need to make some more details here on the chest. Probably the first time, if it's the first time you're doing this, you will make a lot of screw ups, but don't worry, you can go back and you can edit your shape until you get the hang of it. I guess I'm fairly fast at doing this because I've been doing it for many years. When I've made this last point, I will simply click the point that I initially set, the first point I made, and my path is closed. So this path has been closed to form an entire vector shape. Now, if I hold down Control and click one of the points, I can get these Bezier handles to show. I can grab one of the handles by simply left mouse clicking, still while holding down the Control key, and I can move it around in order to change this curve. See how the opposed handle follows it. But also, please see, this handle does not have a Bezier, or this point does not have any Bezier handles. If that is the case, you can hold down Alt. When you hold down Alt, when you hover above this this point, you will see this angled icon on your mouse cursor. So just press down your left mouse button and drag. Be careful not to make a loop, as I'm about to make here. So just move it around until you have a nice clean edge, like this. If you want to place it better, simply hold down your Control key and grab the point that you want to move around. So go over all your control points, and if there's any of them you want to delete, don't hold anything down on your keyboard. Simply hover above a point and you will see this little minus come up. If you press this minus, or if you press this dot when the minus is shown, the point will disappear. If you want to add a point, simply hover your mouse along the line and you will see a little plus on your mouse cursor. When you click on the line, when this plus is shown, it will add a point, and it will automatically make these Bezier handles in order for the point to have no impact on the line unless you move it. So that is basically it. So now we just have to double check if our shape looks as desired. If not, we can always go back and we can edit it as you have just seen. If you have, for example, a sharp angle like down here, and if you by accident made a soft curve like this, you can hold down Alt and simply press one time. It will delete these Bezier handles. If you want a sharp edge on the one side but a curve on the other side, bring up this one, and then while holding down Alt, simply grab one of these and you can move them independently of each other like this. So what I did was I simply selected one of the points by holding down Control, then I created a Bezier handles by holding down Alt and dragging, and then while holding down Alt I press one of the Bezier handles and move it around like this. So let's take a look at what our silhouette looks like. We just chug off our guide layer, our photograph, and look at this. Let's just chug up the opacity to 100% so we can really enjoy the silhouette of the duck that we just made. Let's make a new layer, Control-Shift-N, and let's call it, oh yeah, I should have just named it before. Let's call it BG, and let's fill it with white. So right now I have black as foreground color. I press X to swap them, and I press Alt and backspace to just fill with white. Now remember I said it doesn't matter what color this is, so simple double click on the icon for your silhouette layer and you can decide the color for yourself. If you want a gradient instead, double click outside of the name of your layer to bring up your layer style. If gradient overlay is not shown on yours, just press the FX icon down here and you can see all the opportunities that you have. You can give it a glow, you can give it a stroke, anything you desire. So activate the gradient overlay and you can make a gradient overlay with any of the preset colors, or you can simply choose any preset and then click once inside it and you can define these colors yourself. So let's say I wanted to go from red to a purple color. I want to do like this. I press OK and I don't want it to be reversed. So, but you can decide the direction here, or you can simply just angle it down here. You can press OK, and if you want, for example, the background to be, if you want your silhouette to be transparent down to the background, simple double click on your gradient here and chuck down opacity. Now what will happen here is that it's actually transparent down to the color that you chose as your base color. Then in order for that not to happen, chuck down your fill to 0%. And now you can see whenever I manipulate my opacity here, it will create transparency down to my background instead of to the base color blue. So of course I can get rid of my gradient overlay by just disabling the effect, and I can reactivate my fill by putting it back up on 100%, make it black, and we're ready to test and scale. So let's press Ctrl T for transform, and let's resize this ridiculously much. So we want to look after whether it becomes pixelated or not. So we'll just zoom in back to 100%, and still it's very smooth. And if we, on the other hand, if we resize it back down to a very small size, we have a nice little duck icon, and that's pretty much it. Now you've learned how to use some of the basic vector tools in Photoshop. Let me just show you one more thing. So there are of course some standard shapes that you can use, like for example the rectangle tool and the circle, the rounded rectangle tool, where you can choose a radius up here that will define the roundness, whether it should be big, or let's just make it smaller to 10, and you can see what I mean. So now the roundedness is less. There are of course other things. There are custom shapes. The Photoshop have a lot of built-in standard shapes that look like this. And if you want any of these shapes to behave differently, you can see I already actually have this new layer selected. As for my silhouette, I made the first few squares while standing on my silhouette layer. I should have actually just made a new layer. So let me just control click inside one of these shapes, and I will just make a selection that encompasses these squares and not the duck. And I will press delete. So now we only have this shape, and I up here will choose to combine shapes. If I do that, and I will make a circle here. If you want to make it one-to-one aspect, simply hold down Shift and drag out. So as you can see here, when I choose combine shapes, it will combine them into one layer. These two circles are crossing each other now, but if you want to subtract them from one another, we can do that as well. So we can change the behavior when we make new things. So we can, for example, do like this. Subtract from shape. Thank you. Whoop. And now this shape subtracts this one. It's what you would call Boolean if you were into 3D graphics. So the shape is still there, and if I want, I can manipulate these points. It will ask if I want it to be a freeform shaped, a freeform shape, and of course I want that. So if you want to make something very weird but very fluent, that is the way to do it. So yeah, that was it for this time. I hope you enjoyed it and you learned something about using vector graphics in Photoshop. If you like this tutorial, remember to subscribe to my channel. I will put up new Photoshop tutorials every once in a while.